I enjoyed my time in Austin, Texas this summer for the national conferences. It's great catching up with old friends and reminiscing about the good old days. And it's also great meeting the new fresh faces. I mean, who are the up and coming superstars? Who are the people that are just eager and just ready to grow their businesses? And so one of those fellas I had a chance to meet was Rodrigo Pastori Lora. So here's a fella working in Los Angeles from Brazil, working hard to get the H-1B visa, and I know how much that means to all the people that come here, go to school. You've got a one-year OPT to work hard to get that H-1B, and maybe at some point in time I'll run an episode on U.S. immigration, considering I spent my first 10 years working here on work visas in the U.S. before getting naturalized, but we'll save that for another episode maybe. But you ask a great question, Rodrigo. You're like, listen, I started right after the pandemic. Did you observe anything with businesses that were successful versus the businesses that didn't do so well? And I love that question. And I really thought during the pandemic as well, too. I'm like, what a moment in time to be studying here. I mean, I think 20 years from now, we're going to look back at this moment and be like, what lessons did we really learn here? Were we crazy? Did we do some really good things? Not sure. But obviously, there were some businesses that anybody can observe and say, companies like Amazon, like, a certain niche business like Amazon, like specializing in delivery, like they'll bring you anything, A through Z can be delivered to your home. Well, everybody to stay at home order, like, of course, we're all ordering a ton of stuff from Amazon. I was representing Quill Office Supplies, and of course, we had reps selling pallets of toilet paper. So talk about a niche business. We were selling pallets and as much toilet paper as we could, sell until eventually the world ran out of toilet paper. So there was a nice little niche business for us. There was a local pizzeria that had just opened that just dominated, obviously, because all they did was takeout and delivery. They didn't have dine-in. And so that restaurant thrived during the pandemic. So certain niches thrived. But are there other areas? Is there another category that we should be considering that caused some businesses to thrive and other businesses to decline? And that's really what I want to talk about here today. I think an interesting place to start is to go through some basic accounting principles. So I took some accounting classes in college, and so I remember, the basic formula that every accountant knows is that assets equals liability plus equity. Okay, so that's a basic accounting formula. Now, when you get into the details of this, like, well, what are assets? Assets are things like equipment and inventory. And well, what is liability? What are some categories of liabilities? Well, wages, your employees, people. And just initially, that just rubbed me the wrong way. I'm like, really? Like on the balance sheet, people are a liability? And I know it drives us all crazy unless you're just a business shark looking to invest in stocks, but I think it drives the majority of us nuts when we hear of companies doing mass layoffs. Oh, we just laid off 10,000 people. Oh, and we had record profits. I think that drives people a little nuts because you see the rich getting really rich and then you see the commoners really getting hurt. And yeah, that bothers me to see people on the liabilities category. And I've always taken pride in the business that I have, right? So if you're an accountant trying to prepare my taxes, you're like, Jamie, what can we depreciate in your business? I'm like, well, I don't really have equipment and I don't really have inventory. My people are my assets, and we can't really depreciate the people, can we? We want to appreciate the people. And so, yeah, it's real simple accounting for us, but we really look at our people like they are the assets. That's all we really have in our business. And again, just about every other business out there, the people are the liability. So I wanted to start with that because I think the answer really lies in leadership. Years ago, I was at a conference. Jim Collins, who wrote the book Good to Great, okay, he was at the conference and he said something real interesting. He did a lot of studying before writing that book. He had a team of around 50 people that were trying to answer the question, how did two companies start up at the same time at the same place, right? Like Walmart, for example, Little Rock, Arkansas, back in, I think, either the 50s or 60s. And right across the street's another, wholesaling kind of business. Well, one goes out of business 5 years later. The other goes on to be the world's most successful retailer. How does a restaurant start off in San Bernardino, California in the 60s, or again, might be 50s? It's McDonald's, and they go on to become one of the biggest restaurant businesses in the world. And another restaurant right across the street goes out of business. So he wanted some facts. And he says as his team was gathering facts and data, because they knew that the boss, Jim Collins, he only wanted to know the facts, like Dragnet. Just the facts, ma'am. Don't give me any abstract ideas. He said that his team came into his office hand in hand, the whole team. And Jim Collins is looking like, what are you guys doing? Like, what do you want? And like, hey, we know you don't want to hear this answer, but we think we've discovered something here and you need to listen to us. And we're all on the same page. We want to get you on the same page. Oh, really? What is it? He says, well, we're finding that these successful companies, they work like upside down pyramids, that really the guy at the top is really the guy at the bottom. That the CEO or the president is really serving his or her vice presidents, who are serving his or her, managers, who are serving his or her employees, who are serving his or her customers. But it's kind of an upside down pyramid, we're noticing. There's servant leadership involved in these great businesses. So really, leadership is the short answer. Let's dive into some of this. So the point I'm really going to make here, again, just based on Jim Collins and his team's observation, I really believe the companies that take care of their people are the companies that thrive. That's the leadership element that I noticed during the pandemic, of the companies that did unbelievable and the companies that maybe didn't do so unbelievable didn't focus on taking care of their people. So I want to talk about something a tragedy that's recent, really the wildfires in Lahaina in Maui. So, my family's been to Maui several times and we love that little town of Lahaina. So, we were just heartbroken on the loss of lives, and really the town was just decimated. And so obviously when something like that happens, when tragedy happens, the stories that come after, I think, are pretty interesting. So, one of our favorite companies on the island is the Maui Brewing Company. Our favorite root beer, we've traveled all around the U.S. in pursuit of our favorite root beer. It's the Maui Brewing Company. Check it out sometime. You're not going to find a better root beer. They use honey, for the sweetener, local Maui honey. So I think that's interesting. But, when it first happened, right, and resources were very limited coming into Lahaina, and the people that, had lost their homes, they were one of the first companies to load up whatever boats that they had on the north part of the island, or at least northwest part of the island, and they were bringing in tons of supplies, right? They didn't seek anybody's permission. In fact, they probably went against, government instruction, but they were bringing in boatloads of stuff. I saw tons of video of it looked like 100 people lined up on the beach taking water and generators and things off of boats, giving them to the locals. I want to read something to you. This came from, I've used this company several times, the Island Dreams Production Company. They take photos. They've been on some boat trips with us and stuff like that, took great pictures of our family vacations and things like that. And so I just want to read this. Aloha. As you've probably heard, Maui and Lahaina town have suffered tremendous losses due to the wildfires that leveled the town. We are grateful to report that all Island Dream Productions employees are safe. Some have lost their homes and all of their contents, but they're safe. Our office at 505 Front Street was leveled, but thankfully no one was inside. We would like to utilize our resources to help raise funds for displaced employees, both past and present, and those within our extended family, so they may begin to rebuild their lives. The purpose of this fundraiser is not for our business, it is 100% for our Island Dreams Production family. As the owner of Island Dreams Production and someone who has been supported through the years by the Lahaina community, it is my duty to give back. I love that. Here's somebody that just lost his business, right? Like his business burned down in the fires, and immediately after this tragedy happened, I want to raise money, I want to give back, I don't want anything. There's a major lack of revenue coming in for this company. I just need to do my part to give back. So the world of leadership, it's all about you're thinking of other people. How do I make sure that other people around me are taken care of? Those are the companies that survive and thrive in the long run. Bringing it back to our business, I mean, immediately upon the pandemic happening, Gary, Vera stepped up to the plate and said, listen, we want to take care of the owners, we want to take care of the ICLs, we want to take care of the core leaders. And they literally pumped millions of dollars into the hands of the reps to buy some time to figure out what's going on with the pandemic. Like, oh my goodness. Then obviously the government came along with the PPP loans and really bailed out several small businesses across the United States. So obviously we're thankful for that. But right off the bat, just, Gary and Vera stepping up saying, listen, we're going to take our profits that we've had. We've been saving some money, and rather than buying nice houses and taking fancy trips around the world, we're giving it back to the people. Okay, so there's some leadership right there. Then on even a micro level, I remember talking to owners like Brendan Fulkerson. I'm like, hey, Brendan, so what are you going to do? And he said, Jamie, I'm going to run a loss. Okay, so I've got this much money coming in thanks to Vera and Gary, but I'm going to spend this much. Okay, I'm going to lose money week over week to keep my key players intact. So then when the gun goes off and we're coming out of the gates, right, because we all know we're going to reopen, I want to open with some serious momentum. It's not by fluke or chance that Brendan Fulkerson's running the most profitable ICL really in the history of the company. He ran his business at a loss. He wasn't interested in taking care of himself. He was looking at his people, and I think his people greatly appreciated him, just as we all greatly appreciated Vera and Gary, but it's all about coming through for your people. I want to end this episode giving you one last example that really has nothing to do with the pandemic, but has everything to do with leadership. Okay, I'm talking about Starbucks and Howard Schultz. So before I heard this, all I had ever heard from businesses around the world really was, our customers are number one. We run a business, we're all about serving the customer. And Schultz had the guts to say, listen, at Starbucks, the customer is number two. Number one is the employee, the people that work here. And he created this culture where it was all about empowering and lifting the people, the employees of the business. And today, for many, many years, Starbucks is rated one of the top 50 businesses to work for. So think about it, a barista, you could apply for a barista position at Starbucks, and that's one of the top businesses to work for in the United States. Yes, why is that? Because it's all about taking care of the employee. It's all about the employee number one, customer number two. I haven't heard of any business yet that has had the guts to say something like that, but that really emphasizes the point that the companies that take care of their people, really the leadership, it takes leadership to do that. Those are the businesses that thrive in a pandemic and outside of a pandemic. So that's what I have for you here today, Rodrigo. Great question, and best of luck to you in the business.